All right, fans, welcome. Welcome again, once again, to another edition of Ranking the Albums. And this is our first album ranking in a very, very long time. We took a little break with summer here, but now we're going to start rolling up our sleeves and cleaning out our ears and getting down to it. So I'm bringing in none other than Mr. Thom Jennings. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Rock bands will come, rock bands will go, but rock and roll lives on forever. How's that for an intro?
That's awesome. And that is the famous words of none other than Mr. Raymond Douglas Davies.
Yeah.
And that's
Rock
who
and
we
roll.
are ranking. One of the I always consider this band without a doubt the most underrated band of all time. There's just so much about this band that it's amazing how their legacy stands. You know, they came out all in the same area as the Stones, the Beatles, and all the big, the Who, all those big British bands. And you know, they were holding their own up until they pretty much called it a day. And now it's like they kind of just withered away off into the sunset quietly, you know?
The Waterloo Sunset.
Yeah. It just
Yes.
totally strange, unfortunately, how we never got the chance to really see Ray and Dave get back together. I mean, there's still time for that, but as time marches on, it just gets less and less likely. Father
Yes.
Time.
More likely we'll see them sitting in chairs next to each other, like we will standing next to each other doing a whole show.
Yeah,
Goodness.
sadly.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna get cracking here because we do have 23 albums here to rank here all together.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is one of our biggest ones we ever attempted. Welcome
Yeah.
back to school. All right, so we're gonna start doing. We're gonna do it a little bit differently, just so we can get through the bottom albums quicker. Thom came up with a great idea. We're gonna whip out. He's gonna whip out his bottom five Kinks albums of all time. Talk about
Yep.
those real quick, and then I'll do mine, and then we'll go another five, and then after that, we're gonna finish off by doing them in our traditional back and forth manner with the 13
Yep.
final albums there. So why don't you give me your bottom five Kinks albums here?
All right, little disclaimer. Little disclaimer to the world out there. Remember, when we do our rankings, these are very subjective. So your rankings may be different than ours, but this is the starting point for the discussion, not the argument. I tend to lean towards the 80s material. Reason being is I came of age in the 80s. First time I saw the Kinks was in the 80s. So, again, my personal opinion. If you want to try to convince me otherwise, happy to do it. But here we go. That's why these lists are fun. They're not meant to. I don't think Joseph and I have ever tried to come off as the resident experts. This is just our opinion. We're music fans like you. Okay, how's that for a disclaimer?
Perfect.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Perfect.
Let's just enjoy it, man. These are meant to be fun and informational. So here's my bottom five. If one of these five is your favorite Kinks album, go ahead, throw an egg at the screen. It won't hit me. All right. So I got on the bottom Soap Opera, then UK Jive, then Phobia, then Kinda Kinks, and then The Kinks. Now, of course, Kinda Kinks has one of my favorite songs on it, Tired of Waiting. And The Kinks, which is the first album, has a groundbreaking song, You Really Got Me, which I believe some people say is the introduction of fuzzy, distorted guitar. And we're not going to go into the story that Dave Davies tells, but it's out there. And it's a great story in terms of how he broke his amplifier and supposedly invented distortion. What do you got, Joseph?
All right, so my bottom five here, Preservation Act Two
Ooh.
takes the bottom cake here. Then I got the Kinks. I think you mentioned them. Schools, Boys, and Disgrace is 21. 20 would be the Preservation Act 1, meaning that it was a little bit better than Preservation Act 2, but still falls in the bottom half of the album here ranking. And Phobia at number 19. I was very disappointed in Phobia, unfortunately. That was one album I was looking forward to them carrying on the tradition of really making a lot of great songs. And while it has went back to 15 songs on the album, it just didn't have the material on there needed to really, boost them back up into the stratosphere, unfortunately. So, like you mentioned, there's a few I'm going to mention real quick, like my favorite song off of each of those albums. Preservation Act 2, we are going none other than He's Evil. I love that song. And the first Kinks album, you mentioned You Really Got Me. Um, I'll pick Stop Your Sobbing. That was a good song. The Pretenders redid it as well. And let's see, we're gonna go with Schoolboys and Disgrace. The Hard Way is the most known song on the album, and obviously the title cut was another good song, School Days itself. And then Preservation Act 1, hidden gem on that one for sure, without a doubt, would be Sweet Lady Genevieve. Ray actually opened up a few Kink shows with that song acoustically with just him on the stage, which was awesome. And Phobia, the aforementioned Phobia, makes it almost sound like it's my worst rated Kinks album, but I
Are
guess
you
it's
are you are you scared of that album, Joseph? Phobia?
well, I was scared trying to pick my favorite song off of it because it is tough. But I guess I'm going to go with Still Searching.
Yeah.
That's kind of like Ray's Search for Hope there. Kind of like a carry on to better day from better days in a way. But it just the album unfortunately just didn't really have it, unfortunately. So there's my bottom five. You've got yours in. So now let's if you want to carry on to your next five.
Still there?
Yep.
Oh, I
Did
froze.
you
You
hear that?
froze for a moment. You froze for a moment.
Okay. You got your next five there?
I got him.
All right.
Where I ended off with the Kinks, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go. You talked about both of these: Preservation Act 2, Preservation Act 1. That's my next five. Think Visual, Face to Face, and then Sleepwalker. Obviously this the title cut Sleepwalker. I love that. I think Sleepwalker's a real seminal album for the Kinks as well. We're kind of getting up into really good territory as opposed to the bottom rungs. And that was to me, that seems like that was the record that started to relaunch them back in the US, and they got a little bit more of a modern-ish or maybe a more rockin' sound. Think Visual, man, I love this record, and that doesn't get a lot of love. I looked at some other lists before putting mine together, and it usually gets pretty low. But of those five records, would you like a trivia question? And I'm assuming that you're going to get the answer correct, but
Well, guess we'll
one
find out.
never knows.
Yeah.
Trivia question: which of these five albums has a song on it that mentions our hometown area of Buffalo, New York?
That's simple. Rock and roll cities.
Look at that. There you go. So, how can we not love the Kinks, us Buffalonians? You mentioned the great state of New York and Buffalo, New York as well. And we love New York, with that big heart with it. We love paying taxes here. Well, maybe not so much that, but you know what I'm saying. It's always cool when you have a national act that picks out a city like Buffalo. Buffalo's gotten a lot of mention in songs. Little Feat mentions them, Grateful Dead, some other bands, but
John Fogerty,
yeah.
Rock and Roll Girls. Yep.
Yeah. Shuffle off to Buffalo. Yeah, Buffalo gets a lot of love.
At least they used to.
All
Not so much lately.
right. So,
You figured the Goo Goo Dolls would have done a song about Buffalo with the word in it. I mean, it would have been great.
Broadway is a street in
Well,
Buffalo, so at
yeah,
least they
but
wrote about a street.
to actually put the name in there would be nice.
They had an album with a cover of a car wash that was in Buffalo, so they've had their Buffalo references. But yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Todd Rundgren, Buffalo Grass, but that's not the city of Buffalo.
All right, so you got your middle bottom five.
Yep.
So that would be basically 18, 17, 16, 15, and 14. So my bottom starts out with Muswell Hillbillies.
Ooh.
Yeah, not a fan of that album. The next one is Low Budget. I'm very surprised it ended up there. Don't ask me how it did, but that's how it ranked. That's where it landed. The next one was soap opera. So how soap opera beat low budget, I never would have imagined that in a million years. So I'm really perplexed by that. Kinda Kinks, which was one you had in your bottom five, and that's finally popping up here on mine. And then the final number five is going to be Arthur or the Decline and Fall of the British Empire. So out of those albums, there's a lot of songs that kind of hide on there that were really pretty good songs in my opinion. I loved Holiday will be my Muswell Hillbillies deep cut favorite. Low budget, a lot of this album was filmed for that live album. I guess if I have to pick a good Catch Me Now I'm Falling is one of my that's one of the better ones on that album. Um, Misery wrote a lot of good songs for the album, but I don't know why it just didn't judge higher. I guess I just like the other albums better, I guess. So soap opera has its moments. You make it all worthwhile. Everybody's a star or two that stand out to me. And the last one there, well, Kinda Kinks. That was their second album. You're looking for a good deep cut. I'd say So Long is probably my favorite there. And then the last one, Arthur, which, the main song from Arthur everybody knows is Victoria. Perfect five. Oh,
Victoria.
yeah. Perfect five-star song there. But if you want a deep cut, I would say the following track, Yes Sir, No Sir, is a good track to listen to, or the old traditional Shangri-La by Mr. Raymond Davies there. So there you have my next five. So then we're gonna scoot on down to our top 13, which
Top
which
13. Drum roll, please. So I guess this is my number 13. State. I'm in a state of confusion. Whoa.
you
Yeah,
got
state of
that right.
confusing. Oh man, what a great title cut. The 80s again. This is my wheelhouse in terms of the Kinks. Come Dancing. I mean, you couldn't avoid that one. It was on MTV all the time, and just a great song, fun song, big hit for them. Kind of revitalized their career at that point, and yeah, I saw them on this tour, so that's kind of cool too.
Was that the first time you got to see them?
Yes, I think I'm trying. I know I saw him. I think I saw him 3 times. I saw him on the "Give the People What They Want" tour,
Oh,
then
okay.
State of Confusion, and then Word of Mouth. Word of Mouth is when Tommy Shaw opened for him as a solo act.
Mm,
That was pretty cool. And he was on the Girls with Guns tour. It was an odd pairing at the time. It felt like it a little bit. But Tommy encore with he did Renegade Blue Collar Man and then some cuts from Girls with Guns, but very different from his stick stuff. But the show didn't sell well. It was about half full, and the brothers got in a fight on stage, and they didn't complete the show. This is in Rochester, and then they came back I think a couple years later and performed at a smaller venue, the Rochester Dome Arena, and joked about this will be a better show than the last one. So yeah, so I got to see Ray and Dave go at it a little bit on stage. Isn't
oh,
that nice? Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. Yep, classic for sure.
Yep.
All right, so my number 13 is a different one. It goes back to 1984, the Word of Mouth, which you said you saw that tour.
Yep.
Number 13. Yeah, I mean, it's got a pretty solid album. Some of the songs were used for the Return to Waterloo soundtrack later on. They used different cuts, different versions, but a lot of that album definitely goes on to that. But I would say the true highlight, obviously the two that Do It Again, which was the big radio hit, which got a lot of airplay, and then of course Living on a Thin Line. If you got any of the later live albums, Day and Ray kind of, obviously it's Dave's song. He sings the majority of it, but Ray also chimes in on the live versions, really boosting it up. It really makes the live version sound so much better having Ray acclimated into it. Pretty cool there. You know, word of mouth, Guilty. That's another Dave sings that one live a lot. Guilty till you're proven innocent. So yeah, a lot of good songs on word of mouth, but not enough to get it to crack into their top 10, but definitely a solid album nonetheless.
Yeah. My number 12 is Everybody's in Showbiz, 1972. Got to say, it contains my favorite Kink song of all time, which is, of course, Celluloid
Celluloid
Hero. Right?
Heroes. Okay.
And the version on this album is good, not nearly as good as the live version on One for the Road, but man, what a great song! Just all the way around. Thematically, way it's sung, solid album. You know, early '70s Kinks, again, kind of a transitional phase for them. They're kind of, I feel like '60s Kinks really do still hold on to a lot of that British invasion kind of Who type sound. So yeah, this is where they're starting to come into their own a little bit.
Yep, that was right at the turn of the 70s there.
Yep.
So my number 12 is going to be the Kink Controversy.
Ooh.
Yeah. And that was, you know, obviously the third album. Um yeah, I think this is the album where it really where we started seeing a change, you know, because they started getting away from the covers and they were gearing more towards Ray's writing a lot on here. You know, obviously there's a few covers on it, but not nearly as many as there were on the first two albums. You know, they do have a great version of Milk Cow Blues, which a lot of people did back in the day. Highlights would be Where Have All the Good Times Gone, which obviously was covered by Van Halen. I'm on an Island. That's another one that stands out for me. Really like that one. That's on an earlier live album of theirs as well. And of course, Till the End of the Day, that was a classic Kinks song, and they opened the show with that many times over those earlier years when it first came out there. But yeah, Kink Controversy is where I think the Kinks really started to become a force. You know, with the songwriting, you know, they had a lot of great ideas that were starting to we started to see the development of Ray's songwriting ability, and you know, from there, obviously, it just kept getting better and better and better. So, yep. So there's a start right there. Number 12 for me, the Kink Controversy. Let's get into our number 11 now. What do you got?
You stole all my thunder because
I
my
did.
11 is the Kink Controversy.
Well, now you can continue off on it. Go ahead.
I got nothing else to add. I think till the end of the day, I agree with everything you said. I think you really put that beautifully in terms of this, and you know that period too, even in just in music. You know, think about it. 1965. That's the year that the Beatles really start to become the Beatles. 65, 66. You know, you got Rubber Soul Revolver. A lot of these bands, you know, they were kind of from 1960 to 1965, they were just putting out covers, pop songs. They were just trying to, you know, get the next Beatles or whatever. But yeah, they were starting to become the Kinks on this one. And you mentioned Till the End of the Day. I'm back to, man, that incredible live album, One for the Road. I mean, they do this like it's almost like a reggae version of it on that. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Till the End of the Day, it's just I don't know. That's I think the thing with the Kinks is that they have songs that so many songs that are just pure ear candy and almost punk, you know, almost pre-punk, but you can see where they influence punk music. But yet he has this real folky, almost Americana tinge to him at times. So a very unique combination of styles, you know, whereas I think Led Zeppelin tended to, and maybe even the Who to some degree, and the Stones, you know, they drew more from the American blues and that kind of harder stuff. The Kinks seem to have drawn more from that kind of folky influence.
Yeah. As we will see later on in a couple of these albums,
For sure.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So number 11 for me was the next album in there after the King Controversy, the fourth album, Face to Face, where we see the songwriting process come even more into fine shape here with such gems as Sunny Afternoon, which is still one of my favorite Kink songs by a mile. That's an awesome, awesome song there. And of course, Dandy appears on Face to Face, which the Hermits made pretty famous with their version, written by Ray. Fancy is another good track that stands out on the album. There's a couple other ones, but for overall, there's another solid album with 14 songs on. Obviously, as time goes on, the Kinks will start cutting it down to the usual traditional 10 to 12, depending on, but they always seem to have a little bit more songs on albums than some of these other bands for some reason. Never got a chance to interview any of them to ask them about how they came about figuring out that process, but
you never interviewed a Kink?
No.
Oh wow. I'm surprised. Dave Davies was doing a lot of interviews when he did solo shows.
Yeah.
I interviewed him twice.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So here you got my number 11, Face to Face. So here we are. We're going to crack the top 10.
Are we? Oh my goodness. Are we already there?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. My computer's deciding to just be goofy. Hold on a sec. The Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society.
Wow.
That's my why? Do you think I'm too low?
Too high? No. I didn't mention it yet. I always figured yours would be a even lower, better ranking. That's all.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of people consider that the best Kinks album overall.
It's my notes on here are, mentioning its creativity and things like that. I mean, yeah, it's a great record. But again, I think it kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning of the program, is that I do tend to lean more towards the late 70s, early 80s stuff. So this is one of those records, and there's a few of them that don't necessarily fall in that era. This is an album, obviously, I respect for its creativity. It's incredible. It's got the title cut, like technically the title cut, Village Green Preservation Society. Pretty amazing. Do you remember Walter? Picture Book. I mean, there's a lot of great songs on here and stuff that still kind of stuck around for years after it. And I think we were talking a little bit about that kind of Americana influence. You sort of see that on this album more so than some of the other ones. But yeah, I don't know. I put it where I put it. There's just other records I like more. It's in the top 10, for God's sake.
So he's got the Village Green Preservation Society there at 10. Mine is Give the People What They Want, which was a good follow-up to the Kinks there. Low budget, of course. Give the People What They Want. Gave us a lot of good stuff here. Obviously, I would say the highlight of that album, without a doubt, is Better Things. I mean, it's amazing how you can write such a great song there, and it never really got as big as it should have. I mean, in my estimation, Better Things is probably one of the top 4 or 5 songs that Ray Davies has ever written. If you actually know the song, know the lyrics, I mean, how can this song not be it's such a masterpiece.
So funny story.
Yeah.
If you don't mind my interrupting. My youngest son, Trevor, he'll actually be turning 30 next week, or the week after. I don't know.
Where's time's flying, ain't it?
I know, time is flying. He used to be a little tight. But when he was about 14 or 15 years old, he did it like a video project for school. And he did it. The music that he used for it was the song Better Things. But it wasn't by the Kinks. It was by I want to say it was by some ska band or something like that. And I was like, and he played me the song. I'm like, oh my God, Better Things. I started singing. He's like, I can't believe you know this song. Because, kids don't think their parents know anything. He didn't even know it was a remake. And now I'm wondering what the name of that band was, but I'll try to look it up while you're talking. But yeah, but I agree with you on that song. It's like, it's such a feel good song.
Yeah.
And I remember when I bought the Come Dancing compilation on cassette for my Walkman, that was when I first heard that song. I was like, wow, that's such a great song because it was on there. But you're right, it was never really a single
Yeah, it
that
just
did well.
I mean, even our radio over here didn't really play it at all, which is shocking. But
Right.
so getting back into that album, that's the true highlight of the album. But then if you dig a little deeper, you're gonna find "Around the Dial," which is a great song, talking about DJing there. "Predictable" was a video on MTV that got a lot of airplay, but it just didn't really do anything on the charts. But that's a typical Ray song. "Predictable" is definitely, the video is classic if you've ever seen it. And I would say the final highlight that I'll mention from the album will be none other than "Art Lover," which was on one of the live albums, "The Road" itself. That was the live album that came out in like right for the Think Visual tour there.
Yep.
So yeah, great album, and that's what helped to get to my number 10. Definitely, one of the highlights of the band's career for sure. But we got nine more on my side, and you got nine more to go on yours.
So we'll stop at better things for just a moment because you'll get a chuckle out of some of the people that the group that Trevor was listening to at the time was the Bouncing Souls,
Mm.
and I'm sure you've heard of them. But then the Pearl Jam actually recorded a version of Better Things.
Hmm.
I know, I would love to hear that, and also a group called Fountains of Wayne. Have I ever seen them live?
You sure have. I was sitting next to you when you were watching them.
So before, a little background for you guys if you made it this far into the video. So before we set up our arrangement today, I was interviewing Dave Perna from Soul Asylum, and Joe and I were texting back and forth, and he's talking to me about this Soul Asylum show in Buffalo with Fountains of Wayne. And he said, like, do you remember that show at the Trump? I'm like, no, I wasn't there. And then he sends me a link to the review that I wrote of the song. And I literally said before we started recording today, I go, man, if I wrote a list of groups that I saw live that I don't remember a single minute of, it's got to be Fountains of Wayne. Because they did a one big song, Stacy's Mom, which sounded like the Cars to me. But yeah, that was it. So Fountains of Wayne also did a version of Better Things,
Interesting.
which probably sounds like the Cars. All right, I'm picking up. The Fountains of Wayne guy is probably going to be one of the few people that watches this and be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. They're my favorite band. Disrespectful. All right, where are we? Number 9?
Yeah.
I am at my number 9 is, it appears to be Word of Mouth. Again, kind of a sentimental favorite. Saw the tour. Jim, you mentioned the songs on it before. Living on a Thin Line live. I mean, that to me was like the highlight of that live show. It was just the song was a bit of an outlier, but man, just has a great beat to it, kind of just a cool groove, unlike a lot of the other Kink songs. And when I did get to interview Ray, we talked about that song and I told him how much I really loved it. So yeah, so there you go. 1984. This year,
Yes.
George Orwell said things were just going to go to crap. He was only off by about 30 years, but yeah.
All right. So that's number 9. Mine is one you mentioned a little while ago. That's the "Everybody's in Showbiz." Um, for many people who might not remember, this album is like a half studio, half live, but we counted it just because of "How Can You Not" with "Celluloid Heroes" on it that you mentioned. And there's it's a solid there's 10 solid songs on there that are rankable there for sure, from new songs on the album. And to me, I feel the best song on the album, yeah, "Celluloid Heroes" is in a class by itself. A great song. And I'll never forget seeing them in Cleveland, out at the Nautica stage, which is now Jacobs Pavilion. It was almost like a stage right on the water itself, and then the steamboat was going by, really slow steamboat in the background right during "Celluloid Heroes" to really enhance the song in a live setting. Man, what a picturesque. I would love to see if anybody ever had that on video, but this was about 1995. So, everybody didn't have the old trusty cell phones out back then with the video capabilities. But man, to see that, anybody that loves that song would just, what a picturesque moment, And that I only want to bring that up because you mentioned how Celluloid Heroes, like we said, that song is definitely the number one overall standout on that album. But there's another one for me that's neck and neck with it, and that would be Sitting in My Hotel, which, obviously Ray wrote about that song. That was right around the time when a lot of times when Ray was going to quit the band. There was a lot going on. He felt like he was always stuck in the hotel when he was out on the road because he couldn't go out and do stuff. So if you ever get into the meat of this song, it's definitely about him and how he's, sitting in his hotel. And that's what he felt like when he was on the road, felt like a prisoner inside that hotel. But that was definitely a phenomenal song there. I don't know if you're familiar with that song at all or not.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, it's a great album. That's another great cut. But I mean, Celluloid Heroes. I mean, what's nice about Celluloid Heroes is not only is it a great vocal performance. I
Hmm.
mean, the lead guitar work on that's
Oh, yeah.
incredible. Probably Dave's best work.
And you can always look a little on the sunny side. Another song of hope there
Yep.
from Ray. So yeah, there you have it. It was mostly an album about being on the road because of all the different hot potatoes and
Yeah.
maximum consumption. It's,
Lots of cool songs about road stuff. So it's
yeah.
there's never anything really complimentary. Of course, Kings had that song called "The Road" as well, and then but I was thinking like Triumph Suitcase Blues. You ever heard that one?
Hmm.
He's like, "This dirty hotel rooms really got me down." It's yeah, it's and you and I both interview musicians, and if they ever get to that subject, especially like post COVID, and I mean even think about travel today with the way the weather is. I mean, it's just everything is so unpredictable. It's
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so
I
so there you have for me, that's my number 9. We're gonna get down to number 8. What do you got for us on that?
go Muswell Hillbillies. Do you know this record?
Yeah, that's why it's in
You,
my
you,
bottom 5. Sorry.
really?
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of this album.
Wow.
Nothing
I love
really.
this man, 20th century man. Like, how do you not love that song?
Yeah, but that's like the only song and that and Holiday are the only two that I can really get into.
Cute Schizophrenic Paranoia Blues is another outside. How, you really don't
Well,
like
like
that
like I
one?
said, I'm
Come
a
on,
big
man.
Kinks
The
fan, but that
song
album
Muswell
just
Hillbilly is a great
that's
song as well.
mhm.
Yeah, said this was one. Well, alcohol. I mean, alcohol is a classic. Yeah, a lot. I like this. This is again. This is a little more tinge of Americana
Yeah,
in
this
my
one is
mind.
their most Americana album. You're absolutely right.
Yes. So almost a country album,
Exactly.
but I like it.
I don't.
It's
There
because
you
you're a 21st century man.
you're kind of like the you got peanut butter in my chocolate. You got chocolate in my peanut butter. And we're
Oh,
like
I got one. I got one pretty high that you ranked real low too. So don't worry, we'll
oh
get
yeah. Well, I mean, hey, like you said, hey, you said it during your disclaimer. You said it perfectly. So everybody has their and that's the one unique thing about the Kinks. I mean, you know how some other bands, a lot of times we fall in line with each other once we get to a certain point of the ranking in the catalog. But the Kinks, me and you haven't really aligned much on anything, and that's the uniqueness of this band.
Oh, for sure. Well, they had really three. I'd say three distinct eras. Was that fair? Maybe four. I don't know. I
I'd
mean, you
say,
got
well,
the early.
three
You got the early.
distinct eras, yeah.
I'd say early. You got the early. Kind of pre mid '60s type. '60s British invasion, and then you got that kind of early '70s. Where they're more experimental and they're kind of that creative phase, and then the '70s where they just went back into this arena rock territory, which is pretty crazy. Thinking where they were, they kind of
Yeah.
fell off the map, and then they sort of resurrect from the ashes. At least in America, I don't think they did as well in their home country. And then kind of the last phase, which is the post arena period where they just sort of fizzled out.
Yep. All right. So that was That was your number 8.
Something like that. Yeah, you're the one supposed to be. You're the brains of the operation. I'm just the talent.
So my number 8 is one that you mentioned there way, way, way early on. UK Jive. You know, and the title is definitely fits because he wrote it, you know, from the UK perspective, and it mentioned a lot of stuff in there, you know, is about UK, like, you know, for instance, the song UK Jive, you know, he's talking about having a party at the old family home there and how everybody was dancing and everything. So that song is definitely a British song, you know, you can hear the influences on it. But there's two songs just that I want to mention real quick here that really I feel probably for me helps make the album rank where it ranks right now, and that is none other than the single "How Do I Get Close," which to me I always love that song. I remember the first time I heard it, I fell in love with it right away, and then now and then. Now and then is another one of those better things type songs. If you ever actually listen to the lyrics, and a lot of people don't know are not familiar with this song now and then. You know, you see it on there, you might have played it through, not paid attention to it. But that song pretty much I would say is Ray's, you know, last important song that he ever wrote as far as important songs. So I don't know how familiar you are with that one, but to me that song is definitely in his top 3. No doubt about it. And it's one of those ones that a lot of people just aren't familiar with. And the cool thing, I got to see him live on that tour, the UK Jive tour. They came to, I saw him twice on that tour on a whim because this was before the days of the internet. I found out that they were playing in Cortland, New York, which is south of Syracuse down there. So I went down there and seen the show at the university, and would luck have it that the last song of the night they played Now and Then. Perfect way to end the show if you listen to the lyrics and everything. It was just pretty much just an awesome experience, and to see it live. There's actually a live video on it on YouTube, which is pretty cool. So if you ever get a chance, check it out. Somehow they were able to get somebody to film it somehow, some way back then. Not the greatest film quality, but you know what you do what you got to do with stuff from technology back in those days.
Yeah.
But yeah, UK Jive, you know, for me it's a solid album. You know, Dave has like 3 songs on it, so you know, you get to hear some Dave Davies on there as well. And you know, that's where I have it at number 8.
Yeah, it goes back to, the whole sentimental thing. I mean, like Living on a Thin Line to me, every time I hear that song, I think of the live version. Go
Yeah.
back to it. It's cool when you have a live experience that, you relive every time you play the album track. All
So
right.
you got to see that on the tour of that when it came out then, right?
The word of mouth tour, yeah. Definitely
They
saw the word of mouth tour. They
yeah,
played Living on a Thin Line.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
classic.
Yeah, such a great song. And my next album is Misfits, which, man, a couple of great, obviously the title cut. You're a misfit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great song. But my favorite track on here shares its name, I believe, with a Bad Company track. Is that correct?
Your favorite track on here shares its title with a Bad Company track.
Yeah. I think they have the same name.
Ah, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, they do. Well,
Dan is a fan, right?
slightly different. Slightly different. I think Bad Companies is just called Rock and Roll Fantasy. This is called A Rock and Roll Fantasy.
There you go.
But yeah, and that's like one of my favorite Bad Company cuts as well.
Yeah.
But this song is just yeah, I don't know. To me it's like Jukebox Hero. Jukebox Hero, you get propelled into the character. Like you can kind of, feel the emotions of Lou waiting outside the backstage door. And like you said, Rock and Roll Fantasy is, talking about, the fans that when they look up on the stage and they see their band playing, it's like, man, they can, kind of be there. It is kind of an interesting, I think it captures that essence. And just a great song vocally. I don't know that I've ever heard a live version of it, but the studio version is just perfect. I think this is this is also a very well produced album.
Yeah, those Arista albums really, they did a great job on them.
Yeah, I don't know who. Let me see if I can find who the producer was for this one. Oh, a guy named Ray Davies. Well, there you go. There you go, Ray. I didn't know you were the producer. I know you're watching this right now, Ray. Good job on that one.
Well, by the way, Ray, if you are watching, we both like to do an interview with you about
Oh,
your great catalog.
sure.
Just shoot
Yeah,
us a
come hang.
line.
Choose a line. Just message us through the YouTube page.
Yep,
Yes.
and we'll come calling.
Yeah.
All right. So, yep, more on did you have anything else to add about Misfits besides that?
I am a bit of a misfit. Other than that, no.
Okay. All right. So my number 7, lucky number 7 is going to be the old trusty Lola versus Power Man and the Money Go Round Part 1. Which of course has the comeback song which helped bring the Kinks back to the land of the living there following their exiles from the US.
No, no, no.
Lola.
We're not gonna play that one tonight. All right, we'll do it.
On one condition,
Yeah.
sing
You gotta
along.
sing along. So the word of mouth show, I'm pretty sure he actually did the intro bit like he did on the live album, but then waited like 5 or 6 songs before
Yeah,
playing it. Did you see him do that? Because on the one for the road, he just goes into it right away. But did they do that the times you saw it? Where it
I
was
saw.
they
Yeah, he did that during the Think Visual tour when he came to Darien Lake. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, it
yeah.
was such a tease.
Yeah.
But you knew he was going to play it, and that's the
Oh
good
yeah.
thing about Ray. He always obliged. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, yeah. So mine is Lola. Obviously the song. A lot of versions out there. There's the one with cherry cola, and then they use Coca Cola, and they had to change it and all that good stuff, which is gives you more versions to like. Um, but this album is not just about Lola. Obviously, there's a great track on there called Ape Man, which is one of the best Kink songs in the world. And This Time Tomorrow. And obviously he's writing about the music industry on a couple of these songs up near the top there, like good old Denmark Street. Another gem on here that kind of hides Get Back in Line. Just a great, great, great song. This album is chock full of some really good music for sure. And this is, actually, I thought this one would be even a little bit lower, but I guess I just like so much of the remaining 6 albums that this is where it fell, unfortunately. But definitely not only because of Lola, it does have a lot of good other great songs on it as well. So there you have my number 7. Let's get out over to number 6 here. What you got?
Well, I am a teacher, and maybe that's why this album resonates with me. And I love the cover art.
I bet you do.
Schoolboys in Disgrace. Oh, come on. Come on. Not like that. Yes. Here's a trivia question for you. Which is the only Kinks album with the bare bottom of a schoolboy exposed? Yes. So yeah, Schoolboys in Disgrace. It's this is a divisive album, I believe, in the Kinks community as well. I think it's one of those. Is it safe to say, because you're more of a Kinks fan than I am? I feel like this is one of those records that, yeah, I'm obviously the hard ways on it or whatever, but for the most part, it's a conceptual album. And it's you either really like it and you listen to it beginning to end, or you just whatever. You know what I mean? It feels like there's not a lot of mediocreness in this. People feel fairly strongly one way or the other. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say because like where you
Yeah.
got it and where I got it, there's a classic example. Mine was
Yeah.
21. Yours is
Yeah.
here at number 6. So I mean,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, individual song wise, I don't think it's incredibly strong, but I feel like as a concept album, just the way everything kind of weaves together, the narrative
yeah.
and whatnot, it's a good album. I really enjoy it. I got a beautiful vinyl copy of it. And, I mean, I think the cover art, they say don't judge a book by its cover, But can we just say, folks, sometimes the cover makes the album better. I mean, think of that first Asia album. If it had had a plain white cover, it wouldn't have been as good, right?
No, that cover definitely helped sell the album, but the music inside definitely made it as big as it did for sure.
Yeah, because Lola versus Power Man and the Money Ground Part One. That's a mouthful, which I haven't gotten to yet. I think that cover art's pretty horrible, but whatever.
Well, yeah, definitely. There's a lot of album covers that are not the greatest.
No, but so that's where I'm at. I mean, I knew it's again. I think great point though. You know, we have these at very different spots in our list, but I again being a teacher, that's part of it too, and being kind of a naughty little student when I was school attending, so I can relate to this record.
Yeah, I think this album. Another thing, since I'm not going to be talking about it anymore. I already did, but I think it kind of bridges a gap too. You're coming out of your preservation acts and your soap operas, which were kind of concept albums in itself, and then all of a sudden you come up with another one. But this is kind of like where it kind of bridges the gap with the Hard Way, School Days, into where they're heading next. It's definitely bridges the gap there and brings you into the Arista years following this album, and that's where I think Ray's songwriting takes another leap. You know,
So this is the last one before they get to Arista.
yep, yep.
Okay, what was the first label?
They were on like RCA.
Oh, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, the '70s, the early '70s, and then that Great Lost Kinks album came out, which they didn't want to. The Kinks didn't want it to come out, but they had a record company obligation, so they were kind of forced to put it out there. And as you know, they never ever re-released it again, which is a shame because that is it really is a great Lost Kinks album now. You get a copy, try to find it, hold on to it for dear life. I've got one and I'm happy and I like pretty much that whole album, but they just didn't feel the material was strong enough to be deemed as a Kinks album. So and it was just like a leftovers and stuff that was left on the cutting room floor basically, but there's some good stuff on there, believe it or not. So but anyhow, let's carry on before
Yeah,
we get too far in depth here. So
carry on.
yeah, you got number 6 for yours there, Schoolboys, and my number 6 is State of Confusion, which I believe you mentioned just not too long ago, correct?
Yes. I've already been in a state of confusion.
Yes.
Whoa.
The one thing I like about that is if you ever listen to the studio version of State of Confusion and then listen to a live version of it from the '80s, man, did they really change that song, make it faster, and they made it better in the live version. And if you ever listen to the live version compared to the studio, what a difference! That's one cool aspect.
I think
What?
almost every live version of a Kink song is better. It's like when I mentioned Rock and Roll Fantasy. I mean, that's a great studio cut, but like, I can go through like 20th Century Man, the live version of that. It's just packs a lot of punch. When they do that sped up version of David Watts,
Hmm.
even on the road, like that opening of Do It Again, just how they kind of punch in the gut with that. They were a great live band. I mean, they're those two 70s, 80s live albums, The Road and Give It to People, or One for the Road and The Road. It's not a bad second on either one of them. They just really, I love how they took the 60s material and updated it.
Yes.
They sounded like a punk band. It was fantastic.
I think another interesting point too is everybody always claimed them to be a sloppy live band, but I really feel that they wiped that claim right away with that One from the Road album pretty much going forward. Never again could you really ever say that. They pretty much, like you said, the live versions are stronger, they're better, and they really made them so much put so much more life into the songs the way they performed them live later on throughout their career.
Yeah, and maybe they were just a little bit ahead of their time in terms of that punk edge. And it's I don't know. I mean, because bands like the Ramones live, they're the Ramones. I mean, they're not going to be. You're not going to expect those guys to hit every note perfectly. That's what makes punk
Right.
music or garage music, garage band music. That's what makes it exciting. It's a little raw. It's got that kind of energy to it.
Hmm.
I don't. Yeah, I think some bands have boxed themselves in where they have to sound pretty close to the studio versions because that's a bit of an expectation. Maybe a group like Yes or Styx or
Hmm.
Genesis, some of your prog rock bands. But even they know how to kind of stretch things out and add some different nuances to their live performances. But if you're just doing a straight up rock and roll song, plug in and go for it, man. There's nothing wrong with that. And to
Yeah.
me, that epitomizes the Kinks. I mean, they plugged in and they went for it. Good nights, bad nights, everything in between nights, but it was rock and roll, babe.
Yeah. Well, I think another thing too is the band they had pretty much from 1980 forward. The only person that really changed was just Mick Avery was replaced by Bob Henrit because of everything there. But other than that, they were pretty solid because they had Jim Rodford on bass.
Yep.
And him and Bob Henrit really got good rhythm section there, and Ian Gibbons on keyboard. So I mean, they really stabilized the band, which I think that really was the key factor for this. If all the '80s live albums into the time they got done, you know, playing live in the mid '90s, there was definitely attributed to that. So
Yeah.
let me finish real quick on State. Obviously, we talked about the title cut. Obviously, Come Dancing was the big song on here, which everybody calls it their comeback hit because, the one before that, I think, was Rock and Roll Fantasy, might have been their last top 40 up until then, I believe,
Wow. Interesting. Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I could be. I haven't really looked at the charts in a long time, but I remember they always called State Come Dancing with the MTV video and everything was definitely a like a comeback to them because it went all the way up to number 6. So,
Yeah.
um,
You couldn't turn on MTV without seeing that video
yep.
for a couple of years.
And,
So,
and it had kind of like a counterpart to it if you think about it. Don't Forget to Dance, another great
oh,
great song on that
love,
album.
love, love that song. Yeah. Love that
Yep.
song.
And then Heart of Gold,
Yeah.
that's another gem of a song. Ray
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
wrote some good ones on here. You got some different types of where he starts Definite Maybe, Young Conservatives, but I really like those songs. Those songs definitely complement the album. And then you got the good old trusty Cliches of the World B movie. I mean,
Yeah.
great songs to support the rest of the album. For me, State of Confusion definitely number 6 there.
Nice.
So we're getting down to the top 5. Let's see how many of these we got close to each other.
Well, going back to 1969 and
Ah,
Arthur and the decline of the British Empire, or the decline and fall of the British Empire. Yes. And standout cut on this, of course, is I think we mentioned already. Did you do this one already?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Victoria, Victoria. Yeah, I would say getting out of the 60s, this is a pretty strong record. Again, maybe not as many hits or even staples of the live show or whatever, but I think as a concept album and whatnot, good stuff. Opens strong, closes strong. Some kind of cool stuff in there. Obviously, maybe if I was British, I'd appreciate it a little bit more, but I'm not. So there you go.
All right. And yeah. So let's go back for mine here. We got the old trusty number 5. I've got Misfits. Where was the Misfits on your
Nice.
list?
It's the way my spreadsheet is set up. It's kind of wonky, but it was only a couple of them ago.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, cool. So we're similar there. Yeah,
What
Misfits
was
was
what was what was my last one? 6 was Arthur, right? So
uh,
so
5,
Miss
Arthur, wasn't it?
oh so Misfits is 7.
Okay, it's not bad. We're close. So
Yeah,
mine's 5 here, Misfits. Definitely the second of the Arista albums there. Like you said, the title cut, Misfits. That's definitely a gem. Rock and Roll Fantasy. I went back and looked it up. Correct. That was the last Kinks top 40 hit, reaching at number 30 in the U.S. Up until the next top 40 hit, which was Come Dancing at number 6. So I was absolutely right about that. So they went
Look at you.
a couple of years without any singles there. And, it's hard to believe the Arista years there, they call it that. And, Wish I Could Fly Like Superman had that disco theme, but that only reached number 41. So it came close to cracking the top 40, just not close enough. And don't forget the dance coming off the Come Dancing did reach 29, oddly enough. So
Did Predictable chart? I thought that must have charted too. Was that on that record, or was that on a?
no, that never released Predictable as a single, although it was a video. Isn't that
Yeah, I
strange?
was gonna say because Ray had like that little whatever you call it mustache,
Yep.
and it was like it's kind of a theme from the Come Dancing video.
Hmm.
I think Don't Forget to Dance and Predictable, and then Come Dancing all had him looking like that.
Yeah, I don't know what
Interesting.
happened with that there because it looks like the only single that was released was Come Dancing off of State of Confusion, which is, well, actually they put a non-album in there, so Don't Forget to Dance, State of Confusion, but yeah, and then it just seemed like they didn't really release that many singles or didn't get behind them as good as they should have. I'm not sure what the answer was to that, but obviously by 1987, they're no longer on Arista. So that would end your question right there.
There you go. Well, I'm sure they have, like the Arista years compilations.
Well, yeah,
Like
that's what
there's
they.
like
Yeah,
a whole bunch of compilations coming out soon.
yeah. I think Visual was on MCA by then, and
Oh,
that was.
predictable's not on that State of Confusion. That's why.
No, but it was on the.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm here. It was on Give
Oh,
the. Was
yeah. It's
predictable.
give the people what
Give
they
the people
want.
what they want.
Yeah,
But it still wasn't for whatever reason. It still wasn't released as a single.
it's weird.
Yeah, they only released from Give the People What They Want. Better Things was actually a single, but it only reached number 90 in the US. Odd, very odd. Destroyer got way more airplay, obviously, but that only reached number 80. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think Arista just dropped the ball. They really did. In my estimation, looking back on it now, they definitely did not promote this band the way they needed to, unfortunately. But they did give Ray the ability the freedom to do what he wanted, and he
yep.
did. And I feel, in my estimation, there's a lot of great songs on the Arista album, so I'm not going to complain.
My favorite records. So
Yeah. All
for
right.
the most part.
All right, so we're at five. I'm still on Misfits real quick, and let me finish it up. So we talked about a rock and roll fantasy. I'll give you a couple more deep cuts if you guys want to listen to them. Get up a good listen. Great song, and of course, In a Foreign Land. Here I am in a foreign land. Great song. Just some really good deep cuts there. There's some weak areas of the album, like the Permanent Waves, Black Messiah, Out of the Wardrobe. I don't know. I just never could get into those three songs, no matter how many times I tried. Um, but Dave's Trust Your Heart was cool. Live Life was good. Hay Fever, another one of the Ray's typical type of songs there with that one. But yeah, so yeah, Misfits number 5. So let's get into our number 4 now that we're done chatting about them. What do you got
Give
for
the
4?
people what they want. Give the people what they want. Oh man, love this record. My very first Kinks record, ladies and gentlemen. Give the people what they want.
Mm-hmm.
First heard it with a friend of mine, Tamaki Eimsweiler, went by the name Tammy,
Hmm.
and yeah, she was a big Kinks fan. I think she was the one that dragged me to my first Kinks concert.
Hmm.
I was all into Styx, so I didn't know if the Kinks were cool enough for me. Still into Styx. Don't get me wrong, but yeah. So this record, I remember kind of back in the day, listening to a record was a very communal experience. Your friend would get a record at the record store, either new or used, and say, "Hey, come over to the house. We'll hang out, drink some root beer, and listen to some records,
Root beer.
smoke a bunch
Okay.
of bunch of cigarettes, tobacco. But so yeah, so in fact, I remember we watched her house while she and her parents went away, and I played this one on her record player, and then got my own copy. But great songs, give the people what they want, which I just sang. Predictable, which I mentioned before, not my favorite Kink song, but a fun one. Better Things, which we've kind of flogged a little bit, but yeah, just an amazing song. Um, and Destroyer, I mean,
Hmm.
wow. Art Lover, yeah, it's a great album. I mean, it really is solid, top to bottom. It's like I don't know, I could sing almost every one of these, you know. Around the Dial, man. What a great opening track. You know, I think it's, you know, we don't discuss enough just the importance of, on any album, the very first song to really, really set the stage for what's coming next. And to me, that was just a great opener. I mean, you got you got Around the Dial, and then you go right into Give the People What They Want, and then side two opens up with Destroyer. So it's nice. They kind of spread it. They spread the big ones out. You know, they didn't clump them all together. So it's a really good album experience.
Yeah, I like the sound effects too, where he's dialing in on the dial around the
Yeah,
dial in the beginning. That was the cool thing about the '80s. You get a lot of these songs that have some great sound effects there, and that's definitely a memorable highlight. But if you ever want to listen to
yeah,
the Around the Dial live, that's also on the Road CD,
yes, it
which
is.
is great. A great version of it right there. It's very
Did you say
similar.
CD? I have that on vinyl.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah. My favorite song on that record's Eight Man, the version of Eight Man. It's just a
Oh,
lot of fun on that one. Yeah.
yeah, I like that version better than the studio version by a mile.
Agreed. Agreed. Yes.
Okay, all right. So that is number 4 for you. Mine, I think, is an album that I don't think neither one of us actually touched on yet. So that means we must be close on this one. Something Else by the Kinks, which
Mm.
which came out, I believe, was it 67?
67 it is. You are correct. Ding,
Uh,
ding, ding.
yeah, well, like you said, when you get older, you forget things like going to Fountains of Wayne
You
shows and
like going to
stuff.
see Fountains of Wayne.
But anyhow,
Man,
okay. Yeah,
man, I
so six.
feel like if somebody, you know, called me up and says, "Hey Tom, if you ever saw Fountains of Wayne in concert, you win $1 million." I'm like, "Oh, damn it." You know? Joey be like out yelling at the TV, like, "No, you did see them, but you were sitting next to me." I'm like,
You were back.
I
What
must
was
have
he?
gone to the bathroom during the whole show. Because man, I mean, I don't even remember Stacy's Mom, which is the only song by them I have any clue that they sang. But anyhow, I digress.
All right, so something else for me is definitely number 4 here. We got obviously the Dave Davies, probably the most song that he's most known for out of all the songs, other than You Really Got Me, because the history behind that song is Death of a Clown, which he sings on, wrote the whole 9 yards. That's one of his most, that's why he got the nickname Dave Death of a Clown Davies. So that hides on this album, along with what many people call Ray's greatest song. It's so hard. That'd be an interesting segment show ourselves if we ever actually did like the top 25 Kink songs itself, because that'd be a tough one. But obviously, on Something Else, most of the writers have always cited Waterloo Sunset as the greatest Kink song, with the harmonies and the lyrics and the whole story behind everything. That's just one of those songs that has stood the test of time. Let's be honest.
Mm.
No matter what you think about Waterloo Sunset, is a song that people still talk about today. Believe it or not, that's probably, Ray's written so many great songs. I don't know if I would call it his greatest accomplishment, but I would say it's definitely in his top 3 in my estimation. I'm not a one of those big name writers like Mendelssohn was, or any of those guys, but those are the guys that always cited it, stuff like that. But another standout song is Harry Rag, and that song, which many people don't know about, but it's actually about a cigarette. So Ray always makes that point up whenever they do it live. Um, Lazy Old Son, a lot of songs about, seasons here, and obviously end of the season, which it feels like we're coming upon now here in Western New York with the classic end of the summer here,
I
heading
know, and
into
I'm wearing a Christmas themed shirt. Go figure.
ah,
And I got the green lights on. But no, we're
well,
still in summer here,
well
folks.
you're getting ready for Christmas early. That's all, because you
Yeah,
know it's coming.
I look like Santa. I'm embracing it.
Yeah, so just some really good songs on here, and I don't think you mentioned this album yet, so I'll let you get a little, save a little for you there when you do talk about it. So let's let you get in here with your number three. Wow.
My number 3 is Lola versus Power Man in the Money Ground.
All right.
We've already talked about this one though a lot. I don't really have anything to add. Mine's a little bit higher than yours. I agree with it's 1970 kind of a I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the cover art. That's the only criticism I really have of the record. But yeah, I mean, you could put Lola on a record and just pack it with filler, and it'd still be a great record. This was, but this to me, I guess in some ways, this may have been the record that kind of solidified their place, which they never really got to where they needed to be per se in terms of the discussion. Like when you talk about the big bands out of England in the 60s, usually go with what? Stones, The Who,
Stones,
Led Zeppelin, and the
Beatles.
Beatles, right? Those
Yeah.
four. I mean, the Kinks could have been the fifth. I think in my mind they are.
Yeah, well, I never really considered Led Zeppelin the same as because they did a whole different type of brand of music on their first couple albums. And they started a little bit later than those other ones. The Kinks, the Who, the Beatles, and of course the Stones all started right around the same time. So that's why I always thought those that were the big four actually out of them all. Zeppelin was just somebody who kind of came by later on with a whole different. They kind of changed rock just in general because it was different. They Zeppelin was never pop, and those other four bands kind of started off doing covers, like you said, in a lot of pop songs, and then eventually they found their identities as they went on. But Led Zeppelin pretty much was Led Zeppelin from the first album, but that was well after Zeppelin didn't even start till like 68, I believe. So you're talking 4 years, and everybody else was right in the fighting of the battle there in 63, 64 when they first started recording their first few albums there.
And what may be unique about the Kinks is that their influence on 1970s arena rock through Van Halen. I mean,
Yeah.
one of Van Halen's biggest hits was of course, You Really Got Me, and like I said, they did Where Have All the Good Times Gone, which was a pretty straight ahead version, but clearly they must have had an influence on Eddie or Dave or
Yeah, oh
somebody.
yeah,
But
definitely, without a doubt.
yeah,
Yeah, no doubt
yeah,
about that for sure.
for sure. But even thematically, you look at the song Lola. Lola's
Yeah.
about a cross dresser, and I don't think there was any controversy about that in 1970. I mean, I don't know, everything's controversial today. What I
And then
mean?
you kind of bring it up again in Destroyer.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, I'm gonna go
And that was in the
stick back to
80s,
my place.
so
Right. Yeah.
now if he tried to bring something else about it, who knows what would happen if he ever came up.
Folks, men have been dressing up as women for a long time, even before Bud Light existed. So,
Oh
but
geez.
yeah, it's but that's that in some ways that makes this song a bit groundbreaking because it was a pop song. It was played on radios. It didn't stir up a lot of controversy, but it's just thematically it's kind of funny. It's kind of quippy, but it also brings to light a situation which wasn't necessarily talked about a ton back in the 70s. Although I think in the 70s people just weren't offended as much as they are today.
Well, I guess
I probably
Coke was because they wanted that lyric changed.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, it's not to go too far off on a tangent, but it's interesting. I wonder if the reason that Coke didn't want it in there was it because it was just a protection of the copyright, or it was because of the theme of the song.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's an interesting question to ask.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
look at all this. I said we mentioned what happened with Bud Light. It's tough when a brand aligns with a theme, and then if somebody doesn't agree with the theme, then all hell breaks loose and whatnot. But the Kinks were obviously they had their own issues in terms of just dealing with the record industry and being banned from America and all that kind of stuff. So they were, they got a lot of unlucky breaks, as probably as many lucky breaks as they had. They got a bunch of unlucky ones too. They definitely should have been a lot more popular than they were.
Yep.
And they were pretty popular.
All right, so that was your Lola. My number 3 is one that you're probably going to fall out of your chair over, but it's going to be none other than 1986's Think Visual.
Ooh.
And don't ask me how this album got up here, but I'll tell you how it did. Okay, here we go. Rock and Roll Cities is the song that made, no, just kidding. But that is a great song. I love that song.
It is a
Rock
great
and Roll
song.
Cities. But then you got some other great songs on here, like how about Lost and Found? A nice gem on the album, which is on one of the later live albums. How are you? Oh, I'm doing great. The only song I despise on this whole album is Welcome to Sleazy Town. That's the only song I despise on this album. Other than that, I feel every song is very solid or just pure gem. Rock and Roll Cities, Working at the Factory. What a great song. Because Ray, that was them rating about, he thought he was always going to be stuck working at the factory, but he ended up becoming one of the greatest songwriters of all time. Repetition, another classic song, kind of in the same mode as Predictable. You kind of just expanded on a different subject in a way, but still, there's just some lukewarm stuff that I actually like that maybe some other ones might. But the Video Shop, it's catchy. I can listen to it without skipping it. The song Think Visual is cool. Natural Gift is a lost classic. There's just so many songs on here that never really got a lot of airplay, and obviously MCA definitely did not promote this band the way anybody should have, because with the couple songs on here like Lost and Found, Working at the Factory, Rock and Roll Cities, you figure this album definitely would have done a heck of a lot better than what it did. So
yeah,
that's my.
I did not realize that Dave did the lead vocals on Rock and Roll Cities. I probably should have picked that up. I was just looking at this now.
Oh yeah,
interesting.
Yep, he does it on Rock and Roll Cities and When You Were a Child.
This is here's my trivia for the day. This is the only Kinks album I listened to today in preparation for this show. Because as I was putting my list together, I couldn't think of it. So when I was out running some errands, I said, I think I'll throw this one on. And I liked it. I don't disagree with you. I can see how there's definitely a garage band quality to it, which is nice. It definitely doesn't feel overproduced. It feels like a good old fashioned rock album.
Yeah, and did you know another trivia question? Believe it or not, Mick Avery plays drums in Rock and Roll Cities.
Interesting. Yes, probably Ray was probably not in the room. Is that what happened?
Well, I don't know. It was the weird thing was Dave is the one that always had fights with Mick.
Oh, yeah. Didn't Dave have to? Well, I should, and again, we've already discussed my lack of memories in terms of Fountains of Wayne, but I read both Dave and Ray's books, which are interesting. Like I went through this phase where I was reading a lot of rock biographies, and I read like Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend, and it was cool because there's a lot of parallel stuff because they lived through some of the same stuff, but just their takes on it were so different. And yeah, Dave, I don't remember a lot of the Mick Avery stuff coming up in either Dave or Ray's books. Did you read either one of them?
Yeah, I actually read both of Ray's. He's got the Americana one too.
Yeah. They led a very interesting life. Dave's book was a bit hard to read in parts.
yeah.
And you're laughing because you know exactly what I'm talking about. But he got pretty graphic about his particular tastes.
Yeah, leave it at that. Okay,
we'll leave it at that. Read it if you want to read it, folks. But if you're like me, you're going to skip about 40 pages. You get about 3 or 4 pages in, you go, my God, I got to flip through, see when this stuff stops. But yes, both very interesting books. But yeah, I mean, the whole Mick Avery, it's got to be tough, man. You think about it, like being a drummer in a band like that. I mean, what they're the stars. You can replace a drummer. I mean, who would have thought? you could have just replaced Keith Moon. They did. I mean, they didn't successfully replace him per se, but they went
No.
on without him. They went on without Entwistle. I mean, Led Zeppelin, if they had really wanted to, they easily could have replaced John Bonham. I don't think people would have
Yeah, it would have never been the
begrudged
same
them
though.
for it. It wouldn't have been, but they still could have recorded it. Well, they're talking about Rush maybe doing some stuff now without Neil Peart.
Dumb.
So if that happens, Tyler Hawkins, I didn't think he would be replaceable in Foo Fighters. They'd moved on with him.
All right, well, let's go down to number 2. Let's get this finished off here so people can relax after they
Yeah,
watch
this will be a
this.
quick one. We might have I don't know if we're gonna have the same number one. We could.
No, you mentioned both of the ones that I got coming up already.
Oh, did you? Shoot,
Yeah.
then I don't remember you mentioning my number one. Well, I know you mentioned something else by the Kinks. That's my number 2.
Okay.
Waterloo Sunset we've already kind of talked about, and then David Watts is another, one or whatever. But yeah, I won't beat this one to death. So we've already discussed that. I agree with everything that you had said, and then we'll get on to your number 2, and then we'll see who our numero unos are.
Well, my number 2 is the first Arista album, good old Sleepwalker. And, like you said, definitely a different sound from them coming out of the good old School Days album. But, obviously the song Sleepwalker was one of those ones that I always used to hear on the radio as a kid that I liked. Jukebox Music was another one that got a little airplay there. Life on the Road, interesting song. Kind of hits on some of the Dave subject that's in his book there. If you listen about the lyrics there, but nevertheless, a great song, Life on the Road. I don't know if I like Life on the Road better or the song The Road from the live album. I'm not quite sure which one I like better, but yeah. So Sleepwalker, the last half of the album, side 2, is where I feel it gets different but better in a way because you go into Stormy Sky. It's got that mood setting, and then it goes into just another full moon, and then Life Goes On to close out the album. And then there's of course Brother on there, which is interesting considering these guys are always fighting. But yeah, overall, definitely my second favorite Kinks album, believe it or not. You can put this one on and just sit back and enjoy every moment of it because it's definitely one of their masterpieces.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. Moment of truth. I can't remember what your number 1 would be. We've gone through so many.
See, I don't remember you saying this one. So my number 1 is Low Budget.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Mine was like 17. Remember? And I said, how in the world is it that low? I was surprised it was that high up on my list. But it was at 17.
Yeah, I don't know how it could be that. I mean, I don't know. Great cover art. The song "Low Budget" itself is just ton of fun. You got "Catch Me Now, I'm Falling." Oh man, love that song. It was getting a ton of airplay. And pressure, I got pressure. Wish I could fly like Superman.
Yeah, many of these songs are on
National
the live
Health.
album.
I mean, this is a lot of the stuff that's on the One for the Road.
Yeah,
I think Attitude's definitely on there.
Yep.
Pressure's definitely on there. Very fast paced, low budget. Man, yeah. Moving Pictures is a great song. We don't really hear enough. Maybe the reason you put it down is one. I mean, side 1 is off the charts. I mean, there's not that's solid.
Right. I agree.
Side 2's got it. Side 2 gets a little bit bogged down.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Side 1 is so good. To me, this is like it really epitomizes what the Kinks became in the arena rock era. I mean, this to me is like arena rock.
Oh yeah.
Kinks.
This is the album that put them in the arena rock era. No doubt about it. Because all the tracks on here were just like you mentioned, phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like at the time, I mean, I was a real comic book consumer. I don't really read comic books much anymore. I do on occasion, but you got the Captain America theme, you got the Superman theme.
Yeah, 2
I always
references.
remember when Marvel and DC. So it's like he didn't even pick sides. But when Three Doors Down came out with their Superman song, and then there was another one that was like a kind of a weird ballady one. You remember the one? It was another song about
Yeah,
Superman.
forgot
There's
who it
been a few,
was.
but to me, this is like the best Superman song ever. It's yeah, it's a great song. Wish I could fly like Superman. I love it. And Captain America calling. I mean, it's technically we're not really talking about Captain America, the hero. I mean, he was talking about America and how they helped everybody out, and then when they're in their time of distress, which in the late 70s, you had all kinds of problems with inflation and
Oil.
terrorism and all that stuff. Gas lines, Kinks were pretty in tune. Gallon of gas, they wrote a lot about political topics too. This is to me that's Catch Me Now I'm Falling is an interesting political take, especially from a Brit. We kicked them out. We kicked you guys out. You guys taxed us too much. Now we tax ourselves a heck of a lot more.
We feel like Canada in a way. Jeez.
Hey, hey, yes.
All right.
So that's
Well,
my number one. What's your number one? Because I didn't figure out what yours is either.
my number one. Yeah, this makes it fun doing it this way because it's hard to remember. But
Yeah, it's
if you
23.
remember,
So
I actually stated to you that
uh-huh.
many critics felt this album where you had it ranked is actually the number one Kinks album of all time.
Percy?
Nope. We're going with the Village
So,
Green Preservation Society, baby.
somewhere I got a chuckle out of a Kinks fan when I said Percy, I bet, right?
Probably. Probably a many chuckles more than
Yeah,
likely.
Village Green Preservation Society. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, well, this album to me, is just you say Americana like for the Muswell Hillbillies, but this is more like a British Americana or whatever you want to call it, because it's all about, Sunday school, picture book,
Yeah.
Big Sky, Animal Farm. Man, what great songs on here. Monica, um, Johnny Thunder, Last of the Steam Powered Trains. Oh my God, I could go on and on and listen to this album. I think every song on the first side is pretty much a 5-star song. If you remember, I think it was a picture book they used in a lot of commercials
Yeah.
not too
Yeah.
long ago. Just
Man,
great stuff.
did you ever see the version of Storytellers with Ray
Yeah,
Davies? Oh man.
it was very.
I wish that had come out on a record. Man, those versions of him solo acoustic. I'm pretty sure he did Picture Book and Village Green Preservation Society and
Yeah, he did. If you're, I don't know if you've seen it when he came to Buffalo. That was pretty much the similar set that he played. When he came to the Trough. Did you see that show? And like, it was.
no. I saw him at UB, but he was with a band.
Uh,
The Empty Hearts, I think, was his backing band, and that set was very similar to the one for the road, Kink stuff. So I enjoyed that a lot.
no, this was just him, and he pretty much was telling us about the book, and it was right after. Was it right after or right before? It was right after, I believe, 9/11.
Yeah, no, I remember the tour. He would actually read excerpts of the book and
Yep,
all that stuff. Yeah, I
it was great.
wasn't quite the rock journalist that I am today.
Yeah, but real quick, just to leave these people with a few songs to really check out. Obviously, Village Green is one of the songs that is big with the British Empire there. Starstruck, what a phenomenal song. That's one of the underrated songs of the Kinks catalog, in my estimation, because it never really got its just due there. Big Sky, interesting song. Very, very interesting. I would recommend you to put that on the old turntable when you can and sit there and then go, he was right. This song is great. But yeah, let me know next time you talk to me. Just some really great stuff on here. Definitely my overall number one Kinks album. And it always has been, ever since, I got into the Kinks kind of like you. It was in the 80s, but it was more like the later 80s because I wasn't able to go to concerts until about 85-ish is when I really started to getting into the concerts. And then they came to Darien Lake in 87. And of course, there I am, second row, Ray balancing the bottle on his head for alcohol. And man, what a great great experience being able to see those guys live. And ever since then, I tried to see as many shows as I could. They only came to Buffalo one other time, which was the last time when they played Melody Fair in '95. So I always had to travel to see them the other few times in between that when I got to see them again. So I'm just fortunate that I was able to, I saw one in Cleveland, I saw one up in Toronto. So I'm so glad I was able to travel and get to see these guys the very few times that I did get to see them, because it really those shows stand out to me very very much in my whole concert life. And I've seen over 1,000 concerts. So when you look back and you think of all the good ones, the Kinks set ones always seem to stand out for me.
Yeah. Yeah. One for the road. I mean, I love live albums. I mean, my really, if I had to pick like a type of vinyl that I love the most, it's a double live album or even a triple, just something that captures a show, a tour, a moment, and One for the Road, just such an incredible record. I mean, Cheap Trick at Budokan, that's a single disc, but then they came out with a double of it as well. I think it's just so many great live albums that came out of that era. But that one's just a true standout. I mean, I just remember the first time I heard it, I was like, "Holy crap!" And it was not long after I saw them, so I got to relive a lot of the things that I experienced live. And yeah, a lot of that record, One for the Road, was recorded at Landmark Theater in Syracuse. I don't know if you've ever seen a show there. It's kind of a
No,
nice venue. Yeah, it's probably about like 2,500 seater. It's like a theater. It's
like
like
a Shays.
like a Shays if you're from
Yeah.
Buffalo area or whatnot. But yeah, but anyhow, this was a heck of a catalog to handle. Whew.
Yeah. Speaking of which, here got some
I'm
trivia here
tired.
for you.
All right, go for it.
All right. So, what would you say is the highest U.S. charting Kinks album?
Wow, that's a fascinating question. If I had to guess, I would say it's the one with "Come Dancing" is that State of Confusion?
Yeah, it's number two. That came in at number 12. There's one album that charted one spot higher that came out two albums before it. The one year that's your number one there.
Low budget?
Yep, it's their highest charting U.S. album.
Yeah,
Now
that's crazy.
they did you know that the Kinks have never ever had a platinum album? Isn't that like a shock? It's
Not
weird.
necessarily. I mean, they're one of those groups they've just put out it's interesting. We've just gone through the entire catalog, and I know you're a big Kinks fan, but it's tough to say that they had like that album. You know what I mean? They had a
Yeah,
long career. They put out a bunch of stuff, but they didn't have like that album. Any band you go, Led Zeppelin, Zeppelin 4, maybe Zeppelin 2 or whatever. Rush, Moving Pictures, Styx, Grand Illusion, maybe Pieces of Eight, potentially Paradise Theater. But you know what? There's always, Boston, first Boston album. Aerosmith would probably be what? Night in the Ruts,
Toys in
maybe,
the
or
Attic
Toys in
or
the Attic. Okay, Toys in the Attic. So there's Beatles, what do you think? Sergeant Pepper, maybe Rubber Soul, maybe Abbey Road, Rolling Stones, I mean, you can pick a few of those too. Tattoo You comes to mind because that came out around the time that I was younger, but Stones fans probably wouldn't pick that one. But Sticky Fingers or yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like every band just has like that album that's like the album that everybody owns from that band. Frampton Comes Alive. But what are the Kinks? One for the Road? To me, I would guess could have potentially gone platinum. How did that do? Because were you just
well, yeah, we're just looking at studio.
feel like everybody owned that record.
I don't see it listed here. Oh, live. It went gold, but who knows? Maybe they haven't gone back and certified it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I
But
mean, to me, that's a perfect album. To me, like anything in their catalog, live studio, whatever,
mhm.
if I would rank that as by far and away my number one favorite Kinks recording is that one. And even the compilation they did from, mostly Arista stuff. Just a great collection of songs on that one too.
Yeah, Come Dancing with the Kinks, best of 77 to
Right.
86. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very fruitful era for them. And that double disc compilation, I mean, there's not a bad cut on that. So I mean, they were able to pull two full albums worth of material from that short span in their career. And they've got, tons of compilations from their earlier part of their career. And I don't even know if there's one that's fully career spanning. I think they're trying to work on one now. But
It'd be
yeah,
hard
just
with all the songs they have here. Now, you just brought that up. I guess as an album band, you know, but if man, we didn't even touch on so many other singles, like A Well-Respected Man,
yeah, yeah.
Dedicated Follower of Fashion, Autumn Almanac. I mean, Dead End Street. What gems that weren't actually on albums. So, we definitely got to come back and visit this and do like a top 25 Kinks songs to really bring out the Kinks greatness, I feel.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we did the albums, like you said, I think that was a perfect thing that you said when you said, there's not one the album for the Kinks, and that's why our lists were all over the board.
Well, I think Clapton is the same way too. Eric Clapton, like there's no one Eric Clapton solo album that's just a total standout. I mean, Derek and the Dominoes is technically not an Eric
Right.
Clapton record. I mean, that's to me that's a classic record, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like it's not the definitive Eric Clapton solo record. But Eric Clapton, I own a lot of Eric Clapton records, and there's a lot of great songs on them. But there's not like that one album that if somebody said to me, "Man, what's Eric Clapton's best album?" and I'd be like, "Oh, bam!" It's in my head. So even like with this list, when we put it together, like we did Rush's list, it was like, okay, we pretty well knew we were all going to have moving pictures number one. And I think we all did. But it's a little harder with this. It's a little more nuanced. And again, with the Beatles, there's still maybe two or three. And I mean, they only had 13 albums.
Yeah.
But I said you got Sergeant Pepper, you got Revolver, you got Rubber Soul. And those are
And
the big
Abbey
three.
Road. Yeah. I mean,
Abbey Road, yeah, Abbey Road is a classic. I mean, for some reason that doesn't get the love that necessarily deserves, maybe because it's their last recording, but whatever. I love that record. It was my
yep.
first record ever.
All
But
right.
whatever. But hey, as always,
Yeah.
Joey, this is a lot of fun, and possibly the next time we do this, you will have been. We should mention to our viewers, if you make it to the end, make sure you put congratulations in the comments. This guy's getting married, and you know who's marrying him? Paulette's actually marrying him. But do you know who's performing the ceremony? Me. Yeah, pretty cool. Quite an honor. I'm excited. I hope you're getting excited too.
Yeah. A month ago, a month from today.
Yep. The things I'll do to be able to break out my suit. It's amazing. And I've had to go on a diet, to fit back in my suit. So it's like, but yeah, I made it. So hopefully I'll be ready for the wedding. Just
All
got to
right,
watch that
guys.
tailgating.
Yeah. All right. So, folks, just leave your comments. We want to hear these comments. We want to see what you guys think about these Kinks albums. And if we get enough comments in here, then we're definitely going to tackle possibly the top so many songs. We'll decide that at the time. But because there's so many great songs that I know that we didn't even touch upon just because they're not even on these albums. They had so many
Yeah.
great singles and lost classics, and it's just unbelievable band. Definitely one of my favorite bands of all time. And we'll be doing more stuff down the road. And David Hens will be joining us as well. He actually is going to get us a list of groups that he's interested in possibly doing down the road here, and then we're going to go through them and we're going to rank them and shove them your way so you guys can check them out. So stay tuned for many more of these episodes as we head into the great brave winter months here in Western New York.